Well, just about the only reason this isn't the suckiest time ever to be a sports fan is because we have the Olympics to look forward to, and Team USA just got some great news. Team USA basketball is just around the corner, and we got some great news that really is going to propel future storylines, future NBA franchises. We've got a lot to break down in this video. If you're new to the channel, this is the Daily Huddle, and myself, Ben, along with Aaron and Nate, we keep you up to date about all the latest things in sports. We got a poppin' comment channel, so I'm gonna have some questions for you to hit me up in the comments, and if you like being up to date on sports and chilling with your boys, helps us out a ton if you would like and subscribe. So while it's easy to think like what happens in the Olympics and what happens over in France has nothing to do with the NBA, you would be very wrong. In fact, performance in the Olympic basketball has massive implications for the NBA and the future of stars. If a star steps up and leads their team through and gets medals and all of that kind of stuff, it has implications. If you look at Michael Jordan's ascendance, it all started in 1984 when he played with the Olympic team, and everyone's like, oh, his name should be Timothy, not Michael Jordan, right? And then he became Michael Jordan. Manu Ginobili's ascendancy with the Spurs all started with him playing in Argentina, leading them to the gold. You could say the same thing about Pau Gasol, Kevin Durant, the list goes on and on. I even just think like the view of Carmelo Anthony as a lifelong Nuggets fan changed dramatically based on his performance and his leadership at the Olympic Games. Dirk, he won, I think he got Germany to the medal games. I think they won a silver or gold. And then a couple years later, he won NBA championships with the Dallas Mavericks, and even Anthony Davis, and everyone thinking he's a generational talent. It kind of started by him making the Olympic Games even before he'd ever played with the Pelicans at the time. So I really think this is a massive time for. We've got a star-studded crew that has some of our old timers with LeBron and Steph and AD, and then we got the and KD obviously, and then we got some of the young bloods in there, including Anthony Edwards, who came out and said like, I'm the alpha dog now, everything runs through me. I think if Anthony Edwards steps up and leads this team all the way to the gold medal game and we cruise through some peeps, I think that is going to have massive implications that he's going to really feel like while he got gentlemen swept by the Mavericks, that he really has what it takes to lead the Minnesota Timberwolves to, the Western Conference Championship and hopefully beyond in his estimation, right? Similarly, I think Jokic winning with Serbia would give him an insane amount of confidence. Like, hey, I just beat the best in the USA with a team that doesn't have a lot of NBA talent. I definitely can do that with the Denver Nuggets. So do not get it twisted. What happens with the Team USA is going to impact NBA basketball next season for sure, full stop there. The next thing that's really interesting as we take a look at really the Team USA is the favorites, but we got to remember that international basketball is totally different than the NBA in a couple really key areas, and that has been kind of our Achilles heel at times. And like an Aaron Rodgers Achilles heel, you don't want to have an Achilles heel. So there are a couple of main differences here that certain players who are used to playing on an international stage, i.e. Wembanyama and Jokic and obviously Giannis, like they're used to playing international games. They might actually feel most comfortable with those rules. I remember when Jokic first came to the NBA, he had a couple like really foolish things where he just forgot the type of game he was playing. So a couple of the key differences that really make a difference. So the first one, I guess the overarching thing is that international basketball favors a big dude a lot more than it favors guard play. And if you look at our biggest competition in like Greece with Giannis, he already was unstoppable on the Bucks, and now to have some of these rules that we're going to talk about in a second, that's scary. Jokic as well, very scary. And then Wembanyama to be playing in front of a home crowd after the type of year he had as a rookie in the NBA, I think he hits that with just a tremendous amount of confidence. So let's look at a couple of these rules that are very, very different. So I think the first one is that it's a slower game in that after an offensive rebound, where in the NBA, the shot clock will reset after it hits the rim. Even if it does not hit the rim, the shot clock resets to 14 seconds after an offensive rebound, which leads to a lot more pull out and set up than you see in the NBA. So there's that. There is also a major difference in the goaltending rules, that there is no basket interference or goaltending. So when that ball is up on the cylinder, if it's one bounce, and even if it's about to go in, you don't have to wait whatsoever. You can snag that thing right off there. So I think for a Wembanyama, like that just opens up the entire, if it's not a swish or even if it's on the way down, like that's just insane. That you're able to do that once the ball hits the rim, you can easily swat it out. It could be on its way down after a first bounce and on its way in, and you can knock it out. So that really is going to favor the big man. But the biggest thing here is the zone defense without any illegal defenses. So you can just plant yourself in the lane as long as you want. And so I think that really sets up, the you're going to see a lot of these teams come out in a zone defense. If you have a big rim protector, like, I don't know, let's look at France with Rudy Gobert and Wembanyama, who can just plant two dudes in there and then run a 3-2 zone. That is a really tough thing to stop. And you got Steph Curry, obviously the best shooter in the history of professional basketball, and his 3-point line is a lot closer. And so we're hoping that we shoot lights out. But because of this, like just little change in those little idiosyncrasies, you could see the Team USA get off of their game. And we've seen it before where all of a sudden Puerto Rico is in a game with us and we're like, what the heck? We should be cleaning the floor with these dudes. But let's look. I said there was really good news, and there is. And so let's get into that really good news. So the really good news is that the death group we are not in. And I think that is a really, really good thing. And so looking here, basically how this works is that you play every team in your group, and then the top two teams from that grouping make it on to sudden death knockout round. And then they take the top two performing teams just in all of the groups, and they also get to advance. So you're going to see a couple of these teams who don't finish top two in their group who will advance. But looking here, the death lineup is definitely Group A. So fantastic news for us that we are not in Group A. If you take a look here, the teams in Group A, and we'll just talk about their NBA players in there really quickly in just a second here. But you got Australia, Greece, Canada, and Spain. Canada is predicted to be the second best team in this entire thing, second to us. We just beat them in Vegas 86-72 or something like that. But that game started out, when I was watching that, we were down 11-1 or something like that. And it did not feel like an exhibition game, and you just saw Dylan Brooks set the standard for that. But you got Dylan Brooks, Jamal Murray, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander there. So the interesting thing for me with Team Canada is that I feel like, knowing that international ball really favors the big man, I was very confused as to why Zach Edey from the Memphis Grizzlies, formerly from the Purdue Boilermakers, why he did not make Team Canada's roster. And I was going to dive into that. So if you know, drop it in the comments. But looking here, we'll talk through those here again in a second. Group B, you just see a very clear path for France to make the knockout stage, with it, which I think is probably by design there, that you got Wembanyama and one of the best defenders, like 4-time defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert. Like, truly, if the Minnesota Timberwolves had the two towers, this is actually like a two towers you can get behind, because I would take Wemby over Karl Anthony Towns any day of the week. And then here we are in Group C, which I feel really, really good about. Obviously, that Serbia matchup is going to be tough, and we'll look at when that is and who are some players on here. But let's dive in here to the power rankings and just kind of go through the different NBA players on it. So we'll start here at 12 with South Sudan. So interesting NBA player there would be former Denver Nugget Bol Manute Bol's son there, and just seeing a big dude who can space the floor, amazing rim protector, but also has like some sneaky handles. And other than that, not really a fear there whatsoever. Looking at Japan, their best NBA's talent is definitely Rui Hachimura from the Los Angeles Lakers, and that's really all you got to worry about there. So not even feeling whatsoever nervous about either of those two teams, although it is only South Sudan who is in our grouping. Brazil, while there's been some great Brazilian NBA players, I'm thinking of Nene from the Denver Nuggets. There's not a ton of NBA talent on that team, but now we are walking into really the teams who definitely have a chance at this. Puerto Rico in our group. I do not envision them getting out of our group because they got to play Serbia and us as well. And they have Jose Alvarado, who is a decent player, but not really that afraid of them whatsoever. Looking at Spain, obviously they used to have Pau and Marc Gasol and had some really decent talent at that time and actually won the Silver Olympics back in 2012. But I'm not seeing a ton of talent there. They have a bunch of former Denver Nuggets here as well. We got Willie Hernangomez and Rudy Fernandez and Juancho Hernangomez. And my favorite part about Juancho is that when our Denver Nuggets color announcer, anytime he hucks up a three, he always announces it as Juancho 3. And then if he makes it, he says Gacho 3, which is kind of a cool thing right there. So shout out to Chris Marlowe for the best call ever. So hopefully we don't hear Juancho 3, Gacho 3 a lot in this Olympic Games. I'm not feeling like there's a ton of talent there. Now we're getting into the team that I think has a really clear path as well to making the medal games, and that is the team of Greece. And so, they have a tough draw with a couple other teams on here, but I just think if Giannis is back to his old ways, we know he was kind of hampered with injuries at the start of the playoffs, which is why the Celtics got a garbage championship, in my opinion. They didn't really have a lot of talent in the East because of injuries and stuff like that. But looking at Giannis and his ability, he grew up playing international rules in Greece, and I just think he's going to have a lot to prove in this. And now we're getting to the teams that people think are truly in medal conversation, and we look at Australia, who has drastically overperformed. Notably, Ben Simmons is not going to be on the team. Ben Simmons is an Aussie. And they have Patty Mills, Joe Ingles, Matthew Dellavedova, Dante Exum, Josh Giddey. And, last year they beat Luka Doncic in Slovenia. Interestingly, Luka Doncic and Slovenia got knocked out the other night. So, unfortunately, I was excited to watch Luka because he was built for that slower paced international game. So now we're coming to really the top contenders. And I think Serbia, I think Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA right now. I think he makes every single player around him better. And I've seen that firsthand watching him for 4 or 5 years with the Denver Nuggets, and he just sets people up. And so he does not have a ton of talent around him. He does not have an Aaron Gordon in the dunker spot, doesn't have Jamal Murray with the handles, but him and Bogdan could truly be a very, very interesting punch there. So as I look at this, there's no way, if we look at Group C, it is going to be the United States of America and Serbia coming out of Group C. And it'll be interesting to see head-to-head how that all plays out. Looking here, Germany, I think they have Germany ranked a little higher than I think they'll perform. But they have Franz Wagner on there, who played well with Orlando, and Dennis Schroeder, who I think is getting past his prime, really. And I just feel like I've been watching him forever, and I just don't like, he's a tough player, but I think I would take Serbia over Germany for sure. Now we come to the team that I think could make some real waves in this whole tournament, just because you have, I think defensively, this team is going to be difficult to score on with Rudy Gobert and Wembanyama. And so looking at France playing in front of a home crowd every single game, that is going to be a very, very tough draw. And so France is here. So I think it's going to be France and Germany coming out into the knockout stage here in Group B. And then finally Canada. And I think it's easy to get cocky and get, high on your oats or whatever, because we just beat them by 12 points. But I think we got to remember that was a friendly game in Las Vegas with a all USA crowd there. And you just did not see the level of intensity, especially out of Jamal Murray. I've watched a ton of Murray, and you could just tell they were not necessarily playing like their lives were depending on it. I think that's going to be very different in here. I think with Andrew Wiggins, that could have been a really sneaky team, but we're looking here with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks, who, he and LeBron took it from 0 to 100 right away, and then Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which will be very, very interesting there. But I think the big thing, we know this is a big man tournament and they lack the big men to stop. And so I just think, how are you going to stop Joel Embiid? How are you going to stop Anthony Davis? And so I think they're going to have a really hard time there. So I think if I was to choose who I think is going to be our top 3 finishers in the Olympics, I think we go Team USA, Serbia, and Greece are going to be our top 3 contenders. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? Who is going to win the gold in just a few weeks in Paris? Giddy up. Thanks for huddling up.